The Village People with YMCA playing for you here on Pure West Radio, and it is your monthly installment of Healthy Minds, Better Lives. It's Tom with you here in the hot seat, and I'm joined today by Hayley. Good evening, Hayley.
Evening, Tom. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm, of course, lapping up the sunshine in this wonderful British summertime.
Well, one day of it, anyway.
How have you been, Hayley? Of course, there wasn't a show last month, and well, for you, for good reason.
Yeah, well, I was enjoying my holiday. I debated in mind. I was sat in the caravan thinking, oh, shall I, shan't I? But no, it's actually been really nice to have that break, and I think it's something that we should force ourselves to have that break. It's been really good.
You know what? I was having this conversation with myself just the other day, a little bit off topic before we get into. In fact, no, let's introduce the show first. We've got a few topics that we've handpicked out that we think are pertinent to August. So you'll see we're on live on social media. If you're listening on your smart speaker, we are on the videos. So hello, we can give you a wave here on social media, and you'll see emblazoned on the screen results day, what to do. And then we're going to move into September. We're gonna wish away a couple of weeks. Hopefully there'll be some sunshine in the meantime. But we're going to look at like that changing of the guard, Hayley, of what happens when September comes and normality comes back, and setting goals and figuring out what's what.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so important as well to do it now, particularly getting ready for results day. I think we do a lot of waiting until the results and not preparing ourselves for the potential different, options that could happen. And it's quite a shock, when things don't go maybe your way, it's quite a shock. So yeah, I think it's a good thing that we're talking about that tonight.
Yeah, so we'll get into that as well, and then we're going to deep dive into goals. We've just been chatting off air there about taking steps back to go forward, and actually being a bit kind to yourself, which links into what you were just saying there. It's so important to have that break. And like Healthy Minds, we've been going for a good couple of years now with this monthly show that we put on here every second Thursday of the month. We didn't have it last month, and you know what? There's a bit of rejuvenation now about we need to offer this. And the conversation I had with myself just the other week was I need to start deliberately taking time off and like booking it off. I'm one of these people that I always think I'll book it off if I'm doing something, if I'm going somewhere. But it's just as vitally important to book some time off to do nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. When we went away, I took my laptop, but because we're away, there was no internet. I don't pay for internet. I only paid for 2 days because I was running something. But just being there in the sea, standing in the sunshine, sitting down talking to the kids, just not doing anything else. And how often do we do that? We really don't.
No. And particularly there's lots of literature out there about creatives and doing nothing. And but that also spans to like your business types and your teacher types. Everyone's a little bit creative, but in order to be creative, it's important to have that zero time, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. You think about how stimulated we are constantly, picking our phones up the first thing in the morning. We put them down last thing we go to bed. We're constantly stimulated mentally, emotionally even. And I just think we need to stop. And I'm not sure. I'd love to hear if anybody is listening and wants to comment. How often do you actually completely stop, turn everything off, and do nothing? I can see your guilty face there, Tom.
I know. I think, oh gosh, when was the last time that I deliberately stopped? And I'm struggling. It probably would have been March, like that January, February, March. Like we're talking months ago that I was like, I'm taking some time off. And it's just not frequent enough. We're not designed to be running on go all of the time.
No. Well, no, take away the phones years ago. Sunday, we didn't have shops open on a Sunday. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I do.
Nothing was open. There was no parents rushing anywhere. There might have been church or whatever else, but there was nowhere to be. So a Sunday was it was known as the day of rest.
Yeah.
And we've lost that because we shop 24 hours a day. We have social media 24 hours a day. We're in contact with our friends 24 hours a day. We're working 24 hours a day, some of us.
Yeah.
So just learning to switch off completely, relearning that skill, isn't it?
Yeah, like Sunday was the community day. You just mentioned, we go to church, then you might go to a friend's house for Sunday lunch. It was a time to do nothing but just engage with our friends and neighbours. We don't necessarily have that. But hopefully for a small facet of our community at the moment, those that are exam takers. Hopefully they have had some downtime and they've had some family time. And what's going to start rearing its ugly head potentially for some is this looming. There's 2 dates in the diary in August, which also happens to be a Thursday, actually, doesn't it? Results day.
Yes.
We've got our GCSEs and our A-level results coming out in the next couple of weeks, and it's a big day getting your results.
Yeah, because I think, if you think about the pressure that's been put on, to get the results that they need and to move on to the next step of life, isn't it? It's the next step now. And I think if you've got to have specific A-levels or GCSE results, it's quite the pressure. That stress can be huge. So it becomes this really big day. I've got one doing GCSEs, picking up GCSE results this year, and one picking up college results this year. I did A-levels last year.
Oh gosh, so you're in the thick of it.
I am in the thick of it. I'm quite fortunate, whether it's the way we are in the house, but my kids aren't stressed by it.
Okay.
So we're quite lucky. I don't put any pressure on them. I just, my ideal is go and do your hardest, no matter what that is. Try your hardest, revise as much as you can, go and do, and they all know what they need to get for the next year, for the next step. But I know children who are, nervous wrecks even now, even this early, waiting for those results.
Yeah. And it's a bit of a conundrum as well, because fundamentally there isn't much of today or tomorrow or the eve of picking up your results or even results day that you can do to change them.
Nothing at all. And I think as well, that's hard though, isn't it? Because if you think you come out of an exam and you thought, I could have done better there, the answers just come to me now, or you've got all these thoughts going on, but ultimately you're right on that you can't change anything, but that doesn't stop the worry. And I think that's something people say, oh no, you don't worry, you'll find out on Thursday, whatever, that date, and we'll do what we need to do then. But I am worried.
Yeah.
But, I can't stop worrying. I am worried. So I think it's about learning how to manage those, the emotions that come up and being able to bring yourself back to this moment, because you've only got this moment, really.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? You're training yourself to be a good, a positive warrior. Is that a term that we can coin here?
I've not heard that before. I think, yeah. I'm gonna research that now later.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have, haven't we? We all know how to worry. We've all practiced it enough. Even children,
willingly or not.
Yes, definitely not for me. But yeah, I think it's hard not to worry, because we have this pattern of worry. We know what it feels like. It's familiar, it's predictable, and actually we probably think we should. How many of us actually think I should be worried about my exams, because if I don't get these, the results I need, then I can't move on to university or whatever's next. But actually, I don't know. This is hard. I don't know how this sounds to people who are. I'm not a perfectionist at all, right? I don't really. Whatever happens in terms of perfection for me. But there is always something you can do with whatever results you get, whether that's retakes or resets. This. If you don't, and my son last year, we went and he failed his first year A-levels, and he failed, and he was really upset. And the teacher just said to him, "You can't come back." But it motivated us to go and find him something else. So he's ended up in college, but that wasn't the case. He could have gone back to school.
Oh, so you're dealing with advice that's not helpful then.
And I think this is the thing, really. Think about even if you think you've passed, think about what might happen or what you need to do if you don't. And having a conversation with the right teacher, clearly, because another teacher told me he could have gone back. But it was the right thing for him in the end. But to have that devastation, to have failed everything on the day, and then to be told you can't come back to college, And then somebody else said, come back on the first day of back to school, come back on the first day of school and we'll find out. Well, to me, it's too late.
Yeah.
So find the teacher that's going to give you the best advice, but be prepared for all of it. And I think, what do you need to do if the worst happens? What are you going to do if the best happens? So knowing both of them, you kind of setting yourself up to succeed there.
Yeah, I suppose as a grown up, then watching watching your young ones get these results and that pressure and that expectation with you, I suppose it's not necessarily putting pressure on the result itself, but providing a bit of guidance, support, and advice and guidance as to, well, if it's this, consider this. Because as a young person, we might not necessarily have that fortitude or that wherewithal to understand that there are options A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever might happen.
Well, those options are not sold in school, shall we say? I'm pretty sure they don't give you the option to fail. And I think that's maybe something that should be built into it. If this does happen, yes, we are working towards this, but if this does happen, these are your options. Because my son didn't have a clue what the options were when he failed. Nothing at all. He just failed. She told him that he couldn't go back, and he didn't go back.
Gosh, and like that's fundamentally changed his course of being on this planet. If you look at the butterfly effect and things like that, what could have been. And I suppose from that point on, it's about embracing whatever journey you're on from that point.
Yes, and I remember speaking to my friend. My eldest was doing his GCSEs. Oh no, it wasn't. It wasn't my eldest. It was my niece, and my friend said that where there's a will, there's a way. There's a way of getting to college, even if you haven't got those amazing results that you need. There is a way. So some of the things you can think about doing is speak to the college. That if you're at school or college, speak to the university. And I think we need to start asking, what are my options? Because sometimes if you don't know, then you don't ask.
Exactly. And it's one thing that you learn as you grow a little bit older. It doesn't feel like this when you're growing up, but life isn't black and white. It's not, you didn't get the grades, you're not here. It's amazing what a phone conversation with the right person at the right time can do to get you on that right path, or certainly maybe one step earlier in the path to keep you on where you were headed in the first place. There's a lot of grey and there's a lot of scope for negotiation as you go through life.
Yeah, and skills to learn, aren't they? They really are skills to learn as you get older. But let's teach our young ones those skills now.
Yeah,
amazing.
Perfect. Because I remember picking up my results and my GCSEs. I was happy to an point with my GCSEs, and even though I did relatively well, I was still personally disappointed because I hadn't achieved my own personal targets that I wanted to get. And then A levels, I didn't get what I needed to get into my first choice university, and I hadn't considered those options other than you apply for, I think it's 6 through UCAS, and then you pick your top 2, and you take it from there. And that was very much the path that we were sold in school. Like, there was nothing about apprenticeships really when we were growing up. There's nothing about alternative bits and pieces or going straight into careers. It was, you're going to university. And I didn't get the results I needed. And then all of a sudden, those skills that we just talked about, I was on the phone then to the university and I was like, is there any way that you can? Because on points, I'm equivalent to the grades that you've asked for.
Right.
And like, you're trying to use those negotiation skills when you haven't necessarily been primed in those in a classroom scenario.
Not at all. And I think they're good skills to have, aren't they? You were able to go and figure things out on your own. And that's a problem solving skill as well, isn't it? It's decision making, it's problem solving, it's negotiation. Now, I'm a lot older than you, so I'm going back a long time. I walked away from school with 2 GCSEs, C and above. I walked away with Welsh and science.
Nice.
I couldn't go. I didn't believe I could go to university. I didn't believe I was brainy enough to go to university. So those results were they were neither here nor there really for me. I had what I needed to go to college. And this is something to really think about as well. Learning doesn't stop. So I went back in my 30s to do my teaching. So I did my PGC in my 30s. I did my master's in my 40s. So
Well.
it's possible. It
Yeah,
really is possible. It's not the end of the road, and I think that's the hard thing. That's the hard sell with schools. The
yeah.
GCSEs are the end of the road. They're really not. There's so many options out there for you to be, to still head in the same direction. You just might need to, as you said earlier, to go down a different path, and that's fine.
Yeah. The funny you mentioned your journey there through learning. I'm sure that you won't mind, but my sister followed a very similar pattern. And now, X number of years later, she's sat doing what it was that she first had that inkling of doing back when she was a teenager. And it's life is a squiggly liggly line, and you gotta keep following it. And I go back to that embracing it. We don't necessarily want to look back and resent, oh, I didn't get what I needed. That college didn't give me entry. They didn't let me do that. It's about, right, well, I'm here now. Like I ended up going to university that was my second choice. Like I was a right miserable toad for my freshers week, but I got embraced by this house, and I'm still in contact with them now. I've got wonderful memories of my 3 years studying, and it has still set me up. It still gave me an experience that I embraced and I jumped into with 2 feet.
But do you think, though, that had you been kind of advised that that wasn't the only option, do you think things would have been different for you and how you'd have sort of reacted to your results? Or do you think it was a good thing that you didn't know?
I think I like to know more than necessary. So I think if I was given a full 360 view as to here's where you sit now, here's what you wanted, here's the default B plan, but also there are these other aspects. I also like things quickly. So going on if you do this path, then yes, it's an additional 2 years. I'd be like, oh, 2 years. So it wouldn't have necessarily but at least I would have been armed to make a better decision, based on all the facts. And I think that from what I gather, I think schools are getting better at that holistic model of looking at individuals, not just pupils taking exams. And I think that there is more in the way of targeting different pupils and being like, have you considered this path? This you might find this more enjoyable, more beneficial. But then also you don't want to make that believe that that's their only path, because as we've discussed, there is no only one path. It's whatever one you take.
No, and I think it's hit and miss whether the schools or teachers are like that, I think, depending on area and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's helped my children that I'm quite relaxed, because the way I see it, you've got all your time in the world. You're going to learn things at different points in your life for different reasons as well. So one of my biggest learnings is depression. I'm, that was my biggest life lesson ever. Even though I've done my master's, I got my PGC, I've done all these things, other things in my life, formal learning, but life experience has taught me far more, and I probably use that more than I use any academic learning.
Yeah, your first-hand experience. And well, I think that the lived experience as a young adult picking up your results, you've still got a lot of life to live and to learn.
It's fun as well, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's so many things you could be doing and trying and experiencing.
Yeah, that unknown is one of my favorite things. And well, actually, we're going to move away from the unknown. Actually, we're going to start looking at what we do know and where we want to go to, because this is something that you've had a bit of a revelation with over the last couple of months. And I'm seeing it pay dividends on my social media, and it could be beneficial not just for school leavers, but for anyone who's thinking, what's my next step? And how can we find it? How can we get there? So should we take a bit of a musical interlude, and we'll return looking at goals. Do you want to give us a brief introduction for those that are on Facebook at the moment, so they know to stay tuned?
Yeah, I think we're going to come at it from a different angle. We're going to look at not just goal setting and looking forward. Sometimes something different has to happen. So you may have to take that step back. So we're going to be sharing with you some reasons you may need to step back and how then to keep going forward. And skill of kind of letting the reins go and still working towards your goals.
There we go. So don't go anywhere. We're going to have a little bit of Whitney Houston with I'm Your Baby Tonight. It's coming up to 9:30 here this evening. Thank you very much for your company. We are on your smart speaker, on the mobile app, and online at purewestradio.com. But we're also showing this show in full on Facebook. So be sure to tune in there. Get your questions in about goal setting and taking step backs and your lived experience and results day. And we'll come back with this new take, well, not a new take as such, but a different take on goal setting. You're listening to Pure West Radio.